All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's great to hopefully meet some of you, and I look forward to chatting with you about the Ignite program today. So my name is Kelsey Carlson. I am the Associate Director for Stanford Ignite. I have been doing this for a little over 8 years now. And I work closely with my colleague Jiaying, who is also on the info session. So the two of us will be your program team if you do join us for Ignite this fall. We also have a faculty director, Yossi Feinberg, and he is the professor who is responsible for developing the content of Ignite. He works closely with the venture teams throughout the program and is kind of our key faculty person throughout Ignite. So the three of us have been working together for years to put this program together and are excited to hopefully have some of you join us this fall for our 2024 program. Stanford Ignite is a rigorous academic program. So our goal is to have a fairly intense academic experience over the course of the 4 weeks that you would be in the Ignite program. During that time, you'll learn the business and practical aspects of developing an innovative venture. So in order to achieve that, we bring in a dozen of the most senior and experienced professors at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. We're really fortunate to get to work with exclusively tenured faculty. These are all professors who teach in the MBA and MSX programs at Stanford. So for the most part, they're teaching cases and things like that they teach in their regular MBA classes. However, they are doing a version of their regular kind of accounting content, their regular marketing content, what have you, but that's tailored to entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. So out of their multiple quarter-long courses that they teach, they're choosing kind of their top 3 hours of content that they think are most important for an aspiring entrepreneur. There are sort of 3 categories of class sessions in the Ignite program. The first is our core business skills, and these are going to be things like marketing and operations and finance. And so kind of the things that you're going to need no matter what field of business you go into, and really those kind of textbook business categories. We also have sessions on applied skills like negotiation and communication, because these are skills that even if you know your finance, you know your marketing really well, in order to be a successful entrepreneur, to pitch to VCs and negotiate with clients, you're going to need to have some of these soft skills in order to really thrive in that environment. In addition to these kind of core business concepts and soft skills, we do also have a couple of dedicated entrepreneurship classes. So the faculty director, Yossi, will kick us off with an entrepreneurship session. And then we'll also have some other things like design thinking that are really focused on the process of developing a new idea, running specifically a startup, prototyping, that sort of thing. In addition to the classroom content, we also have a team venture project. The project functions almost like a mock startup that you'll be in with 4 or 5 classmates. And during the course of the program, in addition to having these kind of classroom sessions during the day, you'll also have this hands-on way to apply what you're learning in the classroom in the venture project. So we'll have a series of assignments and check-ins with professors to kind of guide you through the process of developing an idea from inception all the way to a formal business model pitch to VCs at the end of the program. In order to support the project, you have structured assignments as I mentioned, and then Professor Yossi Feinberg will meet with each team every week to have kind of small group time to give feedback on the venture project, and also just have a smaller, more intimate touch point with program participants. We also bring in a number of guest speakers and panelists and mentors from around the Silicon Valley, as well as the GSB. And some of these folks will be from military backgrounds, some will be kind of industry folks from the Silicon Valley. So our goal is to bring in kind of a wide range of people that have experience that might be relevant and helpful to you as you take the step in your career journeys. We'll also have virtual company visits with Bay Area companies. So we have some larger companies and some smaller startups that we'll do a workshop or a session with the program to again kind of bring in different resources that might be supportive to you. At the end of the program, everything culminates in a pitch to a panel of professional investors. This is not an opportunity for funding, so there's no like seed round funding or anything like that that can be raised through Ignite, but instead you'll give a full presentation like you would if you were pitching for funding, but in lieu of funding, you'll receive feedback. So the panelists will share with you what their thoughts were on your presentation, whether they would give you funding, and most importantly, why. So our goal is for you to leave knowing what you would need to do differently if you were to actually pitch to a panel of VCs and try to get a round of funding. The benefits of the program, we hope, will include some practical things. So learning the language of business, whether you are going into attempting to start a startup or going into a role at a large established company, having that language will help you, be able to, regardless of your background, sit down at the table and jump right in to your new role. We hope that you will develop skills to turn an idea into a successful venture. So even if your venture project in Ignite isn't something that you see yourself working on long term, maybe it's not your idea that you're working on, maybe at the end of the program you realize this idea is probably not going to be commercially viable, that's all okay. Our goal is that you are leaving with kind of a toolkit that you can use to do a mini Ignite on whatever ideas you have in the future, whether it's a startup concept or a project that you're working on at a company. You should also leave with improved teamwork, leadership, and public speaking skills, as well as an expanded network. So our current Ignite alumni pool is about 3,000 participants over the last 19 years. So at the end of the program, you'll be connected with all of them. And you'll also, of course, meet the mentors, the panelists, and the guest speakers who come in to help support the program. This program is held online using Zoom. So everything is fully live and real time. There's very little, there isn't any asynchronous class time. There are, case studies and some prep work videos and things that faculty will assign, but all of the instruction happens in real time in a fully interactive Zoom session. So for this reason, live attendance is required at all of the program sessions. We make sure to give you a consistent schedule and regular breaks to help reduce, the Zoom fatigue that I think a lot of us have probably discovered. And we also want to make sure that even though you're not physically in the same space as your fellow participants, you're getting that strong kind of socializing and networking experience of being in an Ignite program. So we'll have a number of virtual social events and networking activities to make sure that you are leaving the program with really strong connections to your fellow participants and are getting that chance to really strengthen your network during the Ignite program. We'll also create a Slack workspace and team channels so you have full virtual kind of environment to be interacting with each other in, to be interacting with Jiaying and Yossi and I in, to make sure that it's a really interactive online program. The program schedule is October 6th through 31st of 2024. So during that time, you'll have classes from 9 a.m. till about 3 p.m. every weekday. In addition, you'll have a team check-in on Saturday. So what that means is that it's not a full day of classes on Saturday, but at some time between about 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Saturday, your team will be scheduled for a half-hour check-in with Professor Feinberg to get that personalized feedback on your venture project. And then in addition to the live online components, we do have a pre-program component that starts on September 10th. So that's when everyone will be enrolled in our online classroom, start having access to program materials, and also start the venture idea submission process. So if you had an idea that you wanted to have formed into a venture team during Ignite, September 10th is when the process of submitting that idea would begin. Thanks to generous support from GSB Development, and a number of organizations, we're able to offer this program at the reduced rate of $2,500. So that includes all of your program materials and all of the class time, kind of faculty fees, all of that. And unfortunately, that fee is not GI Bill eligible because it's a professional development program. At the end of the program, you'll receive a certificate of participation. So we don't have any grades or like transferable academic credits, but you are required to complete the program milestones and attendance standards in order to receive your certificate at the end. It's a selective program, so we want to make sure that we're creating a really strong cohort that will be where you'll have great teammates and a great network. So the exact program size depends on the applicant pool, but we will cap the program at around 50 to make sure that you're getting to have that meaningful kind of smaller group interaction during the 4 weeks that you're in the program. Our application deadline is Thursday, July 25th, so just about a month from today. And the online application includes, so everything is in the online form, but that will include a series of essays and some kind of short answer questions, a resume or CV upload, one recommendation, which is uploaded via a form in the application itself. So you'll enter in your recommender's contact info and they will receive a link to fill out the form online. They don't need to send anything like signed on letterhead or anything like that. And typically for recommenders, we encourage you to choose someone who is either a supervisor or more senior colleague. They can also be a colleague at your level, or they can be somebody who you maybe don't work with, but who is a mentor in your life and knows you well enough to speak to kind of your ambitions and who you are as a teammate and a classmate. You also will be asked to do an online video interview. It's very similar to what an in-person interview would be like, except that you can do it whenever works for your schedule and the admissions committee can review it whenever works for their schedule. So when you start your online video interview, you'll be transferred to a different platform where you'll have an opportunity to practice kind of as much as you want, and you can leave and come back during that practice phase so you can get comfortable with the platform. But once you record your actual interview, you will only have the one opportunity to record the interview. And with that, we've come to the end of my presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and welcome our panelists to join, to come off mute and join us today. So today I'm joined by 4 panelists. I'd like for us to start by just go around and introduce yourself. So your name, which cohort you were in, a little bit about your background, and then a little bit about what you're doing now. Kathy, you're first on my queue of faces, so we'll start with you.
Sure, great. I'm Kathy Chin. I retired from the Air Force about 10 years ago, and I was part of the 2022 Ignite cohort. Now I'm a management consultant, which I've been doing for 7 or 8 years. And I also have a startup, which I started Post-Ignite. And I'll just say in advance that everything that I learned in Ignite was super relevant and helped me in this journey. But our startup is we give new life to expired aviation life vests by repurposing them into waterproof pouches for surfers and outdoor enthusiasts. I live in Hawaii, so I have plenty of opportunity to surf and test my product firsthand. And I'll just leave it there for now.
Great. Brent, let's go to you next.
Hey, good day, everybody. Good day, everybody. Brent Barson. I was in cohort 23, so I guess the most recent class for it. I'm in the process of retiring from the Army right now. I'm actually on terminal leave, and I'll be out 1 August. I took the program, the aspect of hope of starting my own company or being part of a startup company, and I'm still in the process of getting there. But I actually just started a congressional fellowship, which is actually pretty interesting because now I'm on the side of defense appropriations, and I found like a lot of the skills you take from the class of like figuring out how to assess programs, the business model, like what they're trying to do, and like the value behind it is more important. So a lot of the different things I've learned through class has applied in different ways outside of just aspiring to set up my own business someday. The business skills themselves have been pretty critical.
Right, Guts, let's go to you next.
Hey, aloha. I also live in Hawaii, like Kathy, and I was in the same class as Brent and Joel last year. I'm Ryan Gutzwiller, and I go by the name Guts as well. I retired from the Marine Corps on 1 March of this year after 30 plus years of service, a lot of it out here in the Indo-Pacific, and have a wonderful opportunity to continue to reside here while I work in the defense industry in support of Indo-Pacific initiatives. We were talking a little bit earlier before you all joined us, kind of catching up and whatnot. And I'm definitely taking the iterative approach to kind of figuring out what I want to do next. But Ignite was a formative part of that journey for me. Kelsey mentioned in her comments about really kind of an introduction to business fundamentals and the language of it. And for me, that's exactly what it was. And yeah, it was a great experience.
Right, and Joel, on to you.
All right. My name is Joel Garrison. I retired from, well, I was in last year's class, as you've heard already. I retired from the Army after 32 years last August, right before the class in October. I worked for a little while as a contractor supporting the Army Reserves. At the same time, I was taking the skills that I learned from this program, working with a group of friends to try to set up a startup called Town Square Connect, where we essentially help rural poverty-stricken areas try to strategize and gain funding, a lot of it through grants and things like that. I've put that on hold for a moment because I recently got a new job where I'm working as the Congressional Affairs Officer for the Army's G6. So I live right outside of Washington, D.C., and I will probably do this for a bit. And when I get a chance, I'll go through the process and see if the Army will allow me to continue to do my startup on, as a part-time side thing. But I just need to make sure, like some of you that maybe plan on going to work for the government afterwards, you always have to go through and make sure that there's no conflicts of interest or anything like that. So I plan on doing that soon and getting back after the startup and seeing what we can do with that. It's more focused on altruism and helping out and not trying to get, really wealthy or anything. But all of the things I learned in this program are a big plus in us trying to get that off the ground. So I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. So next, I'd love to hear from you what advice you have on how to balance the demands of Ignite and your career or other obligations that you had going on while participating in the program. And I think, Joel, we'll start with you this time.
Well, it was a challenge. I had just started the job working as a contractor for the Army Reserves, and I essentially came in early for work out here on the East Coast time, and then would do my class work. And after that, would go home and do the readings. So it was jam packed, but definitely worth every minute of it. The readings were amazing. Highly recommend do the program. Also, do all the readings and take advantage of every moment that you have to learn. It's really amazing.
Great. Guts, we'll head to you next.
Okay. Uh, So Joel and I were actually on the same project team. We were on Team Verve. And I think we both learned a whole lot about the aircraft design and engineering industry through that experience. To Joel's comments, so between the online classes, the separate team project meetings for Team Verve, and then reading and so forth, it was definitely, I thought Ignite, I likened it to a full-time sprint. It's a commitment, for 30-ish days to include, some Saturdays. And the thing for me, I was not working full time like Joel was. And so what worked out for me was I was able to do 30 days of permissive TAD. My unit approved it, not DoD skill bridge. But because this was a full-time class, I was able to get approval for that. And so I imagine each of the services have a policy for those who are still in active duty. You might look at that option. But the bottom line is I recommend if you don't have to work while you go through Ignite, I think you'll get more out of Ignite, the less distraction you have.
Right. Brent, we'll hear from you next.
Yeah, I agree with everything everybody said. Yeah, it is a full workload, and it's a lot of like self-discipline and instruction. But I think probably the most important thing I didn't realize in week 2, like you're gonna be put into teams, and like you're gonna figure out like everybody has life going on. So the most important piece was building that team, and like some people have, like we had a teammate who was having a family emergency, and so we covered down on her for a day or two. Other people are going to be called to work, or like people take their kids to whatever programs. And so you really find out is like the class is not about you as an individual. Like you start working as a team, you start helping each other out. And I feel like the instructors are very well, like they understand. We come up early enough saying, hey, I'm not gonna be here for this time. Like sometimes we'll have class recordings you can go back to. So the class is not built, you're not gonna fail if you can't make every single thing. I mean, it will build on itself. But there is enough people in the team, enough people on your team to help you out, and the instructors and the program set up to like help rebound you back for that challenge.
And then Kathy, over to you.
I echo what Brent said. Forming that team bond and leaning on each other and taking advantage of people's strengths is very important. I'd also say, as much as you can, front load your other obligations so that you have as little as possible on your plate when you're going through Ignite, because it is really a full load. There's a lot of reading. I used an app called Voice Dream, which reads the stuff to you. So like if I'm driving or if I was doing something else, I would listen to some of the readings, and that was helpful to me. But warn your friends and family, just, and it's one of those things, just like everything else in life, you get as much out of it as you put into it. So just try to reserve that 30-day block to really give everything that you can to the program.
All right. And then one more question from me, and then we'll open it up to questions from attendees. So what advice do you have for new Ignite participants that you wish that you had had when you started? And I think Guts will start with you.
So I have a kind of a mishmash here. So some are things that I thought about beforehand and used and it worked, and other things are things I wish I knew. Everybody's talked about reading ahead before class starts. That's not a joke. Kelsey talked about the cost. And so $2,500, certainly, significantly reduced from the in-person course. But for some, it's still a chunk of change. And so some of us in our class were able to get some help with that. I went through the Commit Foundation and the Johnny Mac Soldiers Fund, and they paid for my participation, had to apply for it and so forth, but just put that out there that there are ways to fund it besides your own wallet. And I think the other thing too was in our class last year, we the last few days of class, we talked about getting together in person. And so we did that. There was Kelsey, I don't remember how many of us there were, maybe 10 or 12 that actually came out, I think. So maybe half of the class, or maybe I don't know, a third or something like that. Anyway, and we self-funded to go out there. I traveled out from Hawaii, others from across the country. And it was a great experience. It was a great capstone to actually get to meet Kelsey and Jang for sure. Some of the other faculty, get to see and visit some of these places. We toured SRI International, Stanford Research Institute International, and just get to know each other a little bit better outside of the Zoom, environment. So I would highly recommend that if, assuming that Kelsey and the team, that it's supportable, because there is a little bit of a tax for them in hosting and so forth. But yeah, I just put that out there.
That is absolutely something that Jaying and I can support for this year and future years. If there is a group of participants who want to come out, I think last year we got a classroom for everyone to join Zoom meetings from, and one of the local participants hosted a get together at his house. We'll see what we can put on for you if anybody does decide to come out and visit campus at the end of the program. And Kathy, I think we'll go to you next for advice for new participants.
I would have loved to meet everybody in person. We didn't have that opportunity. But what I will say is that my venture teammates, I'm still in touch with all of those people and I'm close to them. And we've had many post-class discussions, and a couple of them have really been instrumental in helping me with my business venture. From a practical standpoint, I wish I'd done a better job of downloading all of the material from the website, because you lose the ability to get that stuff at some point. I'm sure if I had asked for it, Jiaying would have probably provided it to me. But before you finish the class, there's so much good information. It's just invaluable. And I wish I'd done a better job of organizing my notes and the materials so that I could really have an organized template moving forward. I guess that's about it. Oh, one more thing. So like when you're choosing your venture, try to think about what you have to offer that you can contribute to the team. It's kind of, it's tempting to think, oh, that idea is really cool. I'm interested in participating in that venture. But I don't know. I felt like I got the most out of it because I tried to place myself somewhere where I could really contribute and help.
Great. Joel, let's go to you next.
I definitely echo what's been said. Kathy, I use Voice Stream as well. I absolutely love it. It's an amazing program. As everyone knows, the commute here in DC is pretty tough. So spending a lot of time going back and forth, and having the PDF reader is really, really good. It really enabled me to do this program and keep up with the readings. I had this program on my dream list for a long time. So I talked to a lot of people about it. I tried to do everything I could to prepare ahead of time, including some of the reading. If I had to go back and do it all over again, other than doing as much research and talking to people about the program and learning everything about the program, I have to also say what Kathy said in that piece right at the beginning, when you're crafting your proposal, and when you're going and you get to basically evaluate your peer proposals. I wish I would have spent more time doing that, and got familiar with all the different programs, and really put more thought I really didn't know what to expect there. So I think that's, you're kind of coming in, you're kind of new, and it hasn't really started yet. But that time I think would be some of the best time that you can, really invest in the program, because that sets the tone for the team that you get on, the project that you work for. It could be your own project, but that's really the sweet spot, in my opinion, as far as you know where to really focus when you're coming to the program. Again, just echo everything that everyone else said. Really good comments, team.
Right, and then Brent, I think over to you next.
Yeah, I think four main points I would like to drive. One, the interview process, or like the submission process. It looks pretty like big when you first look at it, but when you actually start doing it, it's not that bad. Even like recording the interviews, like you get practice rounds, it's pretty easy. Even like the essays are not that hard to do. Uh, Second, kind of everybody else a little bit talk about, like what I didn't realize is if we come in, you're gonna have to pose your business idea, and it's gonna be down selected from there. So I'll probably give some time to think about what business concepts you want to like work through, and then uh, put that out there and like have an idea kind of created. But at the end of the day, whichever, if your business proposal is selected or somebody else's, you know, you're going to, iterate on this problem, and you're going to work as a team when you go through it. So you can't be emotionally tied to whatever you do. And you're going to find out that nothing has to be perfect. Like, these are not graded exams. You're not going to get like a 95 or 75. You're not going to flunk, right? Like, you're going to get rough feedback into the system, but you just need to provide something that's good enough to get you to the next point and make sure the team understands you're bringing everybody with you. And why I say it's important is because it gives you flexibility to learn new things out there. There are some exams or portions you might want to try to do yourself. There's other times you might want to say, hey, how can I use OpenAI or ChatGPT or any of these other platforms out there and see how fast I can react to it, and use modern tools out there for your problem set. And I think just trying different things out there, there's plenty of room or time in the program to try different ways to work on your problem. And that gives you more tools in your belt for the long run. This is also probably like my fourth thing. This is a pretty big network event. So not only the people in the class, but every time someone comes and talk, you're gonna have the opportunity to connect with them. And a lot of them will follow up with you later. And that includes everybody who are the instructors, and like, or I think we had like the CrossFit CEO come in. We have people from different corporations, and a lot of these like individuals and these like MVPs out there, they're looking for great talent. And they know, like, if you're in this program, that you've already been selected above other peers, and that you have a running start, and that you're hungry for something. So it is a good leg up in comparison to like, I guess, the general population if you're trying to move forward. And that's all I have. I'm looking forward to any questions we might get.
Great. Well, thank you, panelists. And now have some time if anybody has any questions for the panel or for Jiaying and I. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have. So you can go ahead and either raise your hand or unmute, or you can type them in chat if you prefer.
Can I raise my hand and turn off my mute?
Love it. What's your question?
Yeah, so my name is Ron. I first, thank you for your stories, and more importantly, thank you for your service. So I'm not from the military, but my son is a special operator, and so I work in the special operations group as a management consultant and executive coach. My question is, how is Ignite different from the Stanford LEAD program, which I'm a graduate of?
So Stanford LEAD is a more in-depth program. It takes place over a significant, over a year, versus Ignite and this is a just under 4-week program. Ignite is specifically tailored to entrepreneurship and innovation. So if you're looking for general business skills, you can come to Ignite for like a really crash course on general business skills, but it's the best fit if you have an interest specifically in innovation. Whereas LEAD is going to give, that more in-depth kind of business content, but it isn't specifically tailored toward entrepreneurs. It'll give you things, finance focus, or, kind of other topic areas of interest that you can find in LEAD.
So is Ignite specifically designed for military? And if so, how is it different other than the time and the money?
So we have 3 Ignite program offerings per year. 2 of them are kind of our general Ignite programs, so part-time and full-time, that serve graduate students and postdocs from Stanford, and then working professionals from around the Bay Area and the world. And then this is our post-9/11 veterans version of the program. So the core content is the same. It's the same faculty, the same kind of subject matter for the most part. The professors do tailor their content a little bit differently based on, we've been doing this program for many years. And so based on kind of the evaluations and what the faculty have seen from participants, kind of the different needs that we see for folks who are coming out of sometimes decades of military service versus, master's students who have been in academia their whole life, and working professionals who are maybe still fairly early in their career. Like, we have identified kind of different needs, so the faculty will tailor specifically to those. The other major difference are the guest speakers that we have. So for the VETS program, honestly gets the coolest guest speakers. They mentioned the CEO of CrossFit. We've had folks from the Hoover Institute come over. We have a pretty solid pool of entrepreneurs and business folks who are typically vets themselves, who can come and talk about kind of their transition from military service into the career that they're in now. So I think the guest speakers are where we tailor the content the most to the veteran cohort.
Thank you. Last question is, can foreign armies join this cohort?
I do not believe so. I would need to check with development, because there are restrictions on how the funding that allows us to offer this program at the discounted rate can be used. So I do not believe that non-US military veterans qualify for the $2,500 tuition.
Oh, so they can be in the program, but it just costs more?
So if they don't qualify, then they would need to do either the part-time or the full-time program at the $14,950 rate. Which, of course, anyone is always welcome to do one of those programs. We have had folks in the past who say that was they wanted to be in with like the Stanford grad students. For the most part, for vets, I would recommend this program because the content is really tailored to folks who are transitioning out of military service or preparing to do so, or just who have that kind of shared background.
Got it. Thank you.
Hi, Kelsey. My name's Beth Sweet. Nice to meet everyone. Great stories. This program has been on my wish list for a very long time too. And the information from the panelists was awesome. I do have a question for all of them, actually. Many have worked, have had jobs or while they were doing the program and have gone on to different things. How quickly did you apply what you learned in the program to your, the job that you were currently in? And did it radically change how you thought about your position at the time and maybe what you did afterwards, what you pursued? So how did this program change your perspective?
And panelists, I'll let you kind of jump in whatever order you feel.
I would say that I immediately used information that I got from the program. Some examples would be Professor Feinberg taught about game theory, which I didn't have any exposure to before. And I found fascinating and was able to apply it immediately to some of the politics that you encounter in the workplace. Additionally, Professor Barnett was incredibly awesome. And a lot of the things he said about strategic planning really resonated with me and helped me when I was advising some of the organizations that I work with on strategic planning. From an entrepreneurial and business information standpoint, everything was relevant. I mean, there was nothing that wasn't relevant if you're considering doing a startup. So I would just say, just do it.
So Beth, I'm something of a professional student and a bookworm, and I have to tell you, I learned so much from this program. I've applied parts of it. I think back to, when I'm at work, I'm doing something, and I have to do a task. I think back to a part of the, the talks and the lectures, and I think, oh, this will be a way to do this. What is the neatest thing about this program, though, is a lot of the material is, I don't know, Kelsey, what do you say? Is it copyrighted? I mean, it's Stanford. It's their experiences. It's their case studies from their clientele, and you're just not going to get it. You're not going to get it anywhere else. It's it's trade secrets. So I was just blown away. It lived up to everything that I had imagined it would be. So yes, and yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think we all come from a different spot. When I was still in the Army, at the time I was working special projects for the commander, and I was immediately like changing my perspective of how we're presenting ourselves to external agencies or higher headquarters, and then post-military, which mind you, I'm in week 3 of, it has like really quickly like a lot of like different entities I'm talking to. I'm listening to listening to them talk about how much they listen to their customer, if they do or don't. And that's one of the things you'll kind of find out in the program. You're going to come up with this great idea, but when you're innovating or you're trying to be an entrepreneur, a lot of times your idea is going to change because like how you're trying to sell it or what the customer really needs might be a little bit different. And then so listening to people to see if they're really listening to what their customers want or what the community is demanding, and if they're willing to adapt to it, or if they are on their path the whole time. On the side, in the last, I would say I kind of started my own LLC in the background, and so I'm trying to develop my own company, working through different pieces, and the pieces in there. I'm taking more of a step back and being deliberate in the sense of, at first when I started the program, I was very clear of the product I wanted to go after. Hey, I wanted to be in this field specifically, and I kind of realized being an entrepreneur, being innovative, a lot of times is not being always tied to a product, but also just finding out what that gap is out there and developing something for it, and then finding the money to develop that thing for the customers. So I'm kind of taking a step back, and I'm more patient about what I'm approaching. But what I've kind of done at the same time is I see a lot more opportunities out there than I saw before. So I really kind of relooked my perception about how to approach this business aspect I'm trying to get involved with.
Thank you.
Just to add, these are great comments. And Beth, I can also attest to being able to apply a lot of what I learned from the curriculum, as well as from my the peers going through the class. All were veterans, right? But different life experiences, especially when you're working with those project teams, getting to learn from each other. Some of the classes that really stood out to me, the design thinking class, Kelsey mentioned that earlier. I'd read the book, Designing Your Life, before that. And so design thinking, bringing that into my everyday work, even to my own personal life, has been helpful. Matt Abrahams, he's the communications guru. He's got a podcast out there. He's got a book. And anyway, learned a lot from him in terms of communicating and also, listening and applying those skills to the business world or just your government workplace or even your own home. Kathy mentioned Bill Barnett. That guy's hilarious. And his class, Strategies in Leading Competitive Organizations, we got that kind of towards the end of the course, as I recall. And it was a phenomenal, really just a great experience and a fun experience in bringing up, learning about, the different examples that he shared with us of successful strategies, failed strategies, applying it in everyday life and solving wicked problems and so forth was really, really a powerful experience. And then the other thing too I'll mention is for me personally, is my outside view of before going through the course was, this is all about entrepreneurship. And Kelsey, I think she was pretty careful at the beginning to use two terms, entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. And so for me, it was kind of figuring out what am I ready for? I was curious about both, but what did I want to go down? And it helped me kind of figure out which path I wanted to start going down, one versus the other, at least at this point in life. And so that was beneficial as well.
Awesome. Yeah.
Just build off what got said a little bit there at the end. I do want to reiterate that, yeah, the program is definitely not just designed for entrepreneurship specific, or like you don't have to be a founder to do Ignite. Certainly if somebody goes through Ignite and then launches a startup, we consider that to be a success. However, if somebody goes through Ignite and at the end of the program is like, I thought I wanted to be a founder and I have now decided I absolutely do not want to be a founder, or like I do not want to launch my idea, that is also a success. Because if you're able to figure that out in the bubble of Ignite without putting in a lot of time and money and, resources, those like real world limited resources, then that is also one of the outcomes that we're excited to see. So yes, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and kind of everything in between.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelsey. I was going to actually ask you about, the metrics, your success metrics for the program. So you kind of partially answered that already. The veteran group has so much to offer, and just curious as to what Stanford was looking for as they tap into, over the last 19 years, this particular population. Can you share any specific metric that you had or super successes that came out of the program?
Ooh, there are definitely, some, I guess, sort of super successes that have come out of Ignite. And we think about like past participants who have launched startups that now have unicorn valuations and that sort of thing. So we do have a handful. There's a woman from our Bangalore program who is now doing a health tech startup that they got their $1 billion valuation 2 years ago now. So she's the first one that comes to mind, but we get those every couple of years, that there's something like that that Yossi and I will text each other like, did you see that? That's really exciting, and have a little party moment. But we also again, some of the successes that I've been really excited about have been people saying like, hey, I had a grad student who had left a few years after Ignite, was like, I did Ignite and went to my manager and got put on a project that I actually care about now, like I'm really excited about, and am heading up a new product development branch at my organization. And that was really exciting to see her doing something within like a large established organization, but launching a cool new vertical that she wouldn't have been able to do without Ignite. So those are kind of the success stories that we're excited about. And I know that for vets, I don't know that there is necessarily a specific type of success story we're looking for from vets that we weren't looking for from the other cohorts. Mostly that, a need was identified for like the specific post-9/11 veterans community, and that it seemed like Ignite was a good way to fill like a need that had been identified. And so I think that this program has been going since 2013, the vets program specifically. So in that time, it's been great to kind of, watch that need hopefully be filled for people, the kind of business education as people are leaving a career of military service.
Kelsey, I just want to add, I think one thing I found everybody who went through the class at the end of it, like there was nobody in the class was like, I don't feel confident about doing business stuff. Like what I think everybody realized was like if you've been in the military for enough, like you understand processes, you understand how things are supposed to work. And when you start really realizing, like you're saying business strategy, that's just basically military decision-making processes, right? And so we really started learning is like the frameworks that you already know, you're just relabeling, you're figuring out different ways to say it. And probably more importantly, everybody towards the end of the week, everybody was confident about what they're approaching, whether they're trying to be entrepreneur, startup, or just joining a bigger corporation, wherever it be, like everybody felt that like that extra, like I guess that like they were ready in a different form. And I think that itself is a big thing. And so if you can see it by the end of the week or end of the month, everybody there was standing tall and they're very confident in what they're doing. To me, that's success, like a good, successful mark.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
So, and I think we have a couple minutes left, so we'll wrap up. But first, just wanted to see, panelists, is there anything else any kind of final thoughts that you would like to share before we wrap up?
Do it.
I really still get a lot out of the program in that whenever I need something, I look back and I can identify, who the expert or the professor or the speaker might have been that covered something that I was interested in. And even now, reaching back, people are very responsive to me. I went to Professor Faulkner and asked him for some advice and help having to do with startup legal stuff. And he ended up hooking me up with the attorneys who we used to pursue some patents. Even our classmates, I had one classmate who hooked us up with the COO of American Airlines so that we could partner with American Airlines to get their life vests to make our product. And then another classmate told me about and helped me get my application together for the REI Embark program. And we were accepted to that and able to do that. And I never would have known about any of that stuff if it hadn't been for my Ignite classmates. Oh, one more thing, just a shout out for the staff. Kelsey and Jiaying are amazing. And they run the program flawlessly. You wouldn't, I hadn't taken that many Zoom classes that were so intensive, and they have it like down. And not only that, but they make it fun, even just like the icebreakers. And I'm not an icebreaker person. I'm not touchy-feely like that. But they did such a good job. It was just really, really amazing. So thank you. And they continue to support me. I reach out occasionally and they help me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I think it seems like a great note to end on. So, thank you all for joining us today. And a special thank you to my 4 panelists. It's really great to have you come in and share your program experiences with future applicants. So just a reminder to, I hope to see applications from you all in about a month. If you have any questions at all for Jiaying and I, we're happy to help out. So you can email us via any of the kind of marketing emails that you've received, or there's a button on our program website. Feel free to reach out if there's anything that we can do to support you in your application process, if you need any more information about the program. And thank you again for joining, and have a good rest of your evening.